You've been there.
Where's No, I have. My next employee.
Okay, good evening, and I'll call to order the November 21st, 2022 regular meeting of the Haywood County Board of Commissioners. Our first order of business will be our Pledge of Allegiance, and then after that, I'm going to ask Pastor Josh Frazier to come forward for the invocation. And if everyone would please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. God in heaven, we thank you for another day to be able to serve this community, to be able to do all that we're called to do. I'm reminded that for every season there is something. There's something there and something that is there to change, and we thank you for those seasons. We thank you for the season that we are in now, and this winter season, and all that it brings, the beauty that's in it, and all that changes in that time. We pray for our commissioners and all those who help make decisions for our county. We pray that each person that has a duty to do would be able to fulfill that to the best of their ability and continue to create an area for all of us to live and serve and be the people that you've called us to be. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Josh. Okay, our next order of business is public hearing, but we do not have any. After that, we have our public comment session. I don't have anyone that signed up. Would anyone like to address the board at this time? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public comment session. We'll move on to constituent concerns. And under constituent concerns, I want to announce a public hearing. Haywood County will conduct a public hearing on Monday, May 5th, 2022 at 9 a.m. to hear comments on the Southwestern North Carolina Home Consortium's annual action plan. The proposed annual action plan can be viewed on the Southwestern Commission's website. And okay, so did you want to add anything?
I think you said May 5th. It's actually December 5th
Okay.
at the next meeting.
Wow. I just want warm weather.
Just warm weather, yeah.
Sorry. Okay. No idea where that came from. Okay. Does anyone have any constituent concerns? I would like to, under constituent concerns, I want to thank Kirk for his service to the county for 20 years, and I have a plaque for him I'd like to present at this time. Kirk, it says, in recognition of your outstanding service and dedication to the citizens of Haywood County, by the unselfish giving of your time, talents, and commitment to open government as Haywood County Commissioner from 2002 to 2022. So, Kirk, I want to thank you for that. And I just wanted to say, I just want to give you all a little history update, Kirk, if that's all right. Kirk was elected, and I've been with Kirk the whole time. So Kirk was elected in 2002, and when we ran in 2002, there was 17 candidates that run for commissioner that year. We had a lot of interest in commission. There was 11 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 1 Libertarian. Kirk finished second out of the Democrats. And then in the general election, he finished second. In the general election, Mark Swanger finished first, and I finished third. And then in 2006, Kirk was a top vote. He received the top votes and led the commission ticket in 2006. He was barely second in 2010 in that race. In 2014, he got the most votes of any commission candidate. And in 2018, he was second. And there was 3 seats available in these races. And one of the things that I think that Kirk brought to the board and our board in 2002 was we brought more professionalism to the board and transparency. We passed board rules, which are still in effect today, that we use. It has made the commission, our board meetings, transparent and open and accessible to the public. We have public comment in every meeting. The public can come up and comment. They can comment on anything they want to comment on. It doesn't have to be a subject that we're talking about, and Lord knows we've had comments that doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. But we welcome those comments, and people can come and make those comments. But we did that. We opened that up. Kirk was a big part of that. It made the board more professional, for everything that we did and transparent. One of the things that I talked about in the back that we did, I really wanted to have, like when we started our meeting, we had a prayer and a pledge of allegiance to the flag, and I really wanted to do that. And I'd gotten a little bit of pushback on that from some of the other board members. But Kirk, I remember talking to Kirk about it. Kirk said, "No, we want to do that. I'll be for that." So we were able to get that into our board rules, and I've always appreciated that. Was one thing that I wanted to see, because I felt like we should honor God in our country, and Kirk made that possible by supporting that. And then while he's been commissioner, we've built the Justice Center over here, and believe it or not, the Justice Center and the parking deck, not only did we build that, it's been built and it's been paid for. It was paid for, I think back in a few years ago, it was paid for. So not only did we build that, we've already paid for it. We've also remodeled this historic courthouse during that time. We built a law enforcement center. We built where the election and veterans office are located now. We did that. We built an animal shelter. We're considering a jail expansion. We built an EM base in Haywood. We had numerous buildings. We did at the HCC building. We built Bethel Elementary School in 2004. We passed the bond. Not only did it build Bethel Elementary School, it did a lot of additions to the school. Kirk's always been a big proponent of the school system and supporting the school system, and in a common sense kind of way. We did, in 2011, we had the worst Health and Human Services building in the state. There was 100 buildings, and we were ranked last. So we were 100th out of 100 counties. When we were able to buy the old Walmart and put the HHS building there. It's in the middle of the county. It's handicap accessible. It was a perfect location. We stepped up and we did that. And so now, and one of the things about the HHS building a lot of people don't realize is we didn't have adequate space for HHS. And when we got the adequate space they needed, the state reimbursed us and the federal government reimbursed us several $100,000. And between that and the Tractor Supply rent there, we basically, our $600,000 a month or a year payment came down to $300,000 a year. And that's what we pay for that. Those are just rough numbers from my memory. So don't quote me exactly on that. But anyway, we did that. That was a good decision, Kirk. We did that during your terms. We privatized the landfill. When we privatized the landfill in 2011, it saved the county $1.9 million a year. So since we privatized that in the last 11 years, that means that the county taxpayers have had $21 million that they've been able to keep and put in their pockets. And we continue to do that every year that the landfill's there. So by privatizing that, we were able to do that. We also have the highest fund balance that I know of in Haywood County history, and Kirk was a big part of that. We made good decisions on the budget, and Kirk was a big part of that. So our fund balance is the highest it's ever been. We also have senior services now. Haywood County was the second oldest county in the state, and now we have senior services, and Kirk helped support that. Probably one of the biggest things Kirk did was help when the hospital was basically Medicare defunded. Yeah. The hospital lost, I think, maybe $20 million during that time.
We were down to 3 patients.
Yeah, okay.
I know that.
So, and Kirk helped broker that, and he was very involved in that as a commissioner, probably more than any commissioner. We were able to sell the hospital to Duke. And at the time, I thought, well, why don't Mission Hospital take it over. But Kirk knew a lot of things that I didn't know, and he was right about those things. And now, you know, Mission Hospital, there's a lot of issues you see around the region on the news all the time, but Duke Hospital, our hospital is strong and it's going strong, and Kirk was a big part of that hospital, was getting that trust. And from the hospital, the county got a $20 million trust fund that we help to help people with their health today. And that trust fund is paying for the nursing facility that they're building at HCC right now. So that fund not only does that, it does a lot of other things. And Kirk, you're going to be missed on that hospital board, I know, and there's going to be some big shoes to fill on that. Kirk he was a big champion of the county's recreation program. You know, we're always looking for things for young people to do, and he was always a champion for any recreation we can do, because Haywood County doesn't do a lot for our young people in recreation. Let's just be honest with it. I know when Joel Mashburn came here, he was shocked that Haywood County didn't have a bigger recreation program, because he was coming from one that they spent tens of millions of dollars a year on their recreation program, and ours was just barely in the hundreds of thousands. But Kirk's always been a champion for the recreation program. And as I said, we were talking to some folks before the meeting, Kirk has always been non-political and non-partisan. Of the 20 years I've been a commissioner, he's never, ever, we've never had a Democrat-Republican argument, if you will, or whatever you want to call that. Because we at the local level are just looking out for the people of our county, for the employees of our county, to deliver the best services. Because the things we do is we make sure that the school system is going to have the adequate funding. We got to make sure that EMS shows up when you call EMS. We got to make sure that the sheriff is properly funded when we call the sheriff's office and we need law enforcement out there. And we got to make sure that you got somewhere to take your trash. And that's really the basic things of what we do. And I'm sure that the Health and Human Services, we have to do that. The state and federal government says you have to do certain things, and we have to do that. So when it comes to county government, Kirk has never had, that I know of, that I can remember, we've never had not an argument, or we might have a conversation about something, but it was never. But Kirk has been so non-political, and I don't guess you don't mind if I'd say this, I don't think he even reads the newspaper. He just stays. Kirk has got a lot of common sense, and he's real down to earth, and he's approachable. And usually Kirk was right about anything that he did and stuff. He always had the best interest for the county out there when we did things. And Kirk, I just wanted to thank you for your service. It's been a pleasure serving with you. You've been elected to 5 terms. There's only 2 commissioners. You and I have been elected to 5 terms. No commissioner has served more than that in Haywood County. I think Ed Russell had served for 4 terms, and then everybody else is less than 3 or less. But Kirk has served, was the first elected to 5 terms, and the reason you were elected to those 5 terms is because you looked out for the people. And unfortunately, you know, there wasn't a red wave across America, but there was in Haywood County. And so, you know, that's what happened. And so, you know, unfortunately, even though you were nonpartisan and non-political, it swept you out, even though you never were that kind of, you know, into the partisanship that is so prevalent today. So, like I say, you always looked out for everybody, and I just wanted to make those comments during this time, and I'm sorry it went on, but Kirk has done a lot for our county. And it's been a pleasure to serve with you. And I think some of the other ones probably want to say something.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm still mad at him over the Pisgah-Tuscola ball game, so I don't have anything good to say about Kirk. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm glad that it turned out like it did. But I got to know Kirk when I got elected back in 2016, and Kirk and I has built a good friendship over the years, and I'm glad that I got the opportunity to know him better. I knew him before, I think, but not on the level that I do now. And I've appreciated serving with him, as Kevin said it best, pointing out all these things. I just ditto what you said, and we're going to miss you being around, but we'll come see you, maybe, hopefully on property situations and nothing from a other legal standpoint. But we appreciate what you've done for the county. Kirk has always brought a different perspective to our board. It's been nice to have him around from a legal standpoint and a different vision. And our board is a good as a whole. You know, we all bring something different. I think Commissioner Long said that earlier in the little reception that we had. We all bring something different to this board, and that's a good thing. You know, you don't want everybody to always agree or everybody to think alike, and I appreciate that in Kirk. I remember that when I was elected, Kirk was the chair. He welcomed me in. When I sat in this seat for the first time, I didn't really realize what I was getting into. I quickly learned, and Kirk helped me through that, and always give me the opportunity to speak my mind and maybe say some things that I probably shouldn't have, but I appreciate that and the learning curve that I had. But we appreciate you being around, appreciate all you've done, and we won't let you get too far.
Thank you.
Well, as Commissioner Rogers said, we had a little reception back before the meeting today, and I had to say a few words. But, you know, the takeaway for me is for somebody to be able to serve the county for 20 years like you have done, it speaks volumes to your commitment to the county and to the people of this county. And I guess you've had to answer a whole lot of phone calls about barking dogs and complaints about stuff like that. I just got back from a state county commissioners legislative goals process in Raleigh, and there are very few commissioners that have served 5 terms all across this state. I'm telling you, there are just very few folks that do that, and you're to be commended to the service that you have performed for this county, and I appreciate the short time that I've had to serve with you and learn from you and Kevin. You know, experience is hard to beat, and that's what we'll miss because of some of the decisions that were made 16 years ago. It built precedent, and you know, but we, like Commissioner Rogers said, I'm sure you'll always be there for a sounding board, and we appreciate your service. I know I do, and appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you, Tommy.
The night that I was sworn in, I'm pretty certain you were dressed like Santa Claus. So I've only served with you for a couple of years, but you've been very kind and very welcoming and really laid tremendous foundation for the county. And we have big shoes to fill going forward, but I appreciate your help thus far, and we'll do our best. Thanks for what you've done.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, I wanted to say a few things, but I'm certainly very honored to have served this county for 20 years. I started out kind of on a whim. They talked me into running I think the very last day that you could file. Somebody said, you need to run for commissioner. And I wasn't even really sure what a commissioner did. And I didn't even know who the commissioners were. But I went down there and signed up. And of course that started something that I didn't think that would last this long. Actually, I tried not to run a couple times. Mark Schwanger talked me into running again, and he and I butted heads in 2002, and he was the one that talked me into running for commissioner after my second term, and I appreciate that. And I did list. I just want to say the commissioners' names. There was too many people to just list everybody's names, but I wanted to list the commissioners, or at least give out the commissioners' names that I have served with over time, and there was 13 commissioners. And what I can say about all of these people that I have served with is that there's no one that I have served with that did not have Haywood County in their best interest. It might have been a different way to look at it than I did, but they always had Haywood County in their heart. But I started with Bill Nolan was on the board, Carlisle Ferguson, Mark Schwanger, Kevin Inslee, Larry Ammons, Mary Ann Enlow, Skeeter Curtis, Bill Upton, Michael Sarles, Brandon Rogers, Tommy Long, Mark Pless, and Jennifer Best, the 13 commissioners. And I looked at that, and they're out of my 10 two-year terms, or there's 5 terms, but there's 10 in which it's rotating. There were 8 different boards. So there's 8 different times that it was made up of 5 different people. But I'm going to miss the most the camaraderie that I have with the commissioners and with the employees of this county, because this county has a lot to owe to their employees. They are good employees, they work hard, and they have the people's interests at heart. And it's been really good to see that. And I'm going to miss that. I think the camaraderie more than anything else. I was telling them in the back, one of the things that I was trying to relate this to something, because there's not too many things you're involved in for 20 years. I mean, if you're in the military, you get to retire and you get pension and all that stuff. I was trying to wait for that to happen, but it just never did pan out for commissioners. But I remember the last baseball game. I'm sorry, I might get a little tore up. That I played in college, and at that time I had a child already. I was the old man on the baseball team, and we were in the playoffs, and we lost. And when you go into that, you don't realize that day you're going to lose, and all of a sudden it ends. And that day, baseball ended for me, and I put my bat down, and that was it. And but one thing I could say is I gave it everything I had the whole time I played. And so when I put my bat down, I was okay with it. And even though the competitive part of me, wanted to serve another term, the other part of me said, I've done the best I can for 20 years. And I've tried to serve this county the best I could for 20 years and serve its people, and never use this position to try to get something I wanted, but to look out for everybody. And when it comes to Tuscola-Pisgah stuff, sometimes, you can't do that, but you have to set that aside and you look after everybody in this county. And I tried to do that with every decision that I made. I can't say that I'm going to completely miss it. I'm going to miss the people. I may not miss the job. But I do thank everybody who has supported me over these years. And I wish everybody the best. And this board, and Kevin, I'm glad you did that, because you can always remember everything so much better than everybody else. And I never would have remembered all that stuff to talk about it. But there's just been a lot of things that we've been through, and I've enjoyed it. It's been tough work. People don't realize it. They think it's 2 meetings a month, but it's 2 meetings a month. It's phone calls. It's another meeting at least with the board, and then we serve on at least about 4 different boards apiece, and so it takes a lot of time and effort, but it has been enjoyable, and I'm very proud to have served the people of this county, because I mean, like I've said many times before, I love this county. I love the people that I've served with as well. And I thank you all very much.
And Bryant, you'll appreciate this. Kirk has served under every county manager that the Haywood County's ever had.
Wow.
Forgot to mention that. So, yeah.
That's right.
So that's another one. And there's a lot that I forgot.
There's so many people's names that I could have said this evening, and I mean, so many people, and I just knew that I would leave people out, but most of you are here.
That's right. That's right. Okay. All right. Well, that was great. Does anybody have anything else on the commissioner constituent concerns? Okay, we'll move to administrative agency reports and presentations. We have an emergency watershed protection projects update, and McGill and Associates, PA Vice President and Regional Office Manager Mark Cathy will give that. Mark, welcome tonight. Appreciate you coming out on a cold night.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. First, I thought you were doing me a favor by putting me at the front, and then you make me follow this presentation. So, anyway, thank you, Kirk, for your service.
Thank you, Mark.
It's great. So thank the board for having me, and thank the staff for having me. I know several of you have seen this before, and so I will be brief and let you ask questions. But by all means, please interrupt me and ask questions anywhere you have something at any time so that we can get through that. So yes, as we know, the flooding last year in August really had, produced a lot of damage in East Fork, as many people know, and then down 110 and Asheville Highway, as well as some other outliers. But that's now, there's some 70 different sites. Some of those are duplicate, but there's a lot of sites that need work in this county as a result of Tropical Storm Fred. So there we go. So McGill Associates, many of you have been here before. We worked with the county for some 35, 36 years in some capacity, and that relationship's been appreciated. We're approximately 140 employees in our main office, corporate offices in Asheville. We have sub-consultants on this project that we've brought because it's a large project and it has a relatively short time frame. Stantec, Telex, Bunnell Lammons Engineering, and Key Mapping and Surveying. Just to give you an overview of the team, we've got Water Resources. Water Resources is out of our Raleigh office, our Water Resources Department. We also have civil site that's going to be needed on some of the stabilization projects. And we have construction administration, environmental, again, key mapping on surveying, and we have Stantec on the stabilization stream restoration sites that require that, as well as easement negotiation for right of entries and any easements that might be required, and then field observation with Bunnell Lammons Engineering. So there's two components to the projects. There's debris removal, and then there's debris removal with some stabilization and restoration. So our intent is to have early success on these projects, take the debris removal projects and assemble those together as bid projects such that we can provide an environment for local contractors to bid that work, as well as get those out on the street as quick as possible to show early success on this project. Because, as many of you know, this project had a very short time frame. It's really an impossible time frame in order to do all the things that are needed. But that being said, we want to escalate that and try to have some early successes. And that's why you see here that we would have the access. We would do the design and permitting in the 9 to 12 months, hopefully sooner on some of those sites. And that'll also allow us to understand what the pricing is going to come in on these projects, so that if we need to request more money, we'll know what the environment is for that. Create bid documents, and then, of course, the construction administration and contractor selection. But the overall timeline, if you can see, for these projects are basically 9 to 14 months for the debris removal projects. And that's what we anticipate, hopefully, starting, pending an approval of a contract, starting in this month, December. First week of December is the intent. So next, I want to talk some about experience. We have had similar projects that came out of Hurricane Florence, the city of Wilmington. We had a citywide EWP with them with about approximately 13,000 linear feet of debris removal. We had the same thing due to Hurricane Florence with Cumberland County, a countywide EWP with 32 different project areas, right of entries on 250 properties, so that was quite the undertaking. And also Gumbo Branch EWP with town of St. Paul's. And so there we were able to prepare a revised scope to better utilize the funding. And so that's some of the things that, depending on what happens here on these sites, we want to maximize funding that the county receives for all this stream cleanup. And so we want to make sure that's maximized. And if we need to move it from one site to the other as it's available, that's what we intend to do as well. Also, we worked, McGill Associates, on this project back in 2005 after Hurricane Francis and Ivan, so we're very familiar with some of these areas. Again, a lot of these areas fared well, and a lot of the areas did not fare well this time, because I think this time was even more excessive due to the flow and the damage than it was back in 2005. We worked on several dozen sites back then, all over East Fork, West Fork, Asheville Highway, Fiberville. This time it's, as I said, it's mostly on East Fork, as everyone is aware. So why choose McGill? Again, with 38 years of experience, we have the bench strength developed with this team. We're familiar with the permitting agencies that this work is required, as well as the, from doing it in 2005, some of the same parties that we worked with in 2005. Also, we have qualified subconsultants that are used to doing this type of work. We have worked with the EWP and STRAP program recently as well as historically. We have a standard approach of success for these projects, and feel that we can work on these efficiently and get this money spent as quickly as possible to get these projects cleaned up for the county. We're also working on many recovery projects with the town of Canton based on the devastation that Canton had, so we're quite familiar with all the funding agencies, even outside the ones we have here if other funding becomes available. And so we're quite familiar with the requirements for the documentation to make sure that we stay in line, the county gets the money, and there's no hiccups with that. So that's a big part of all of this. And through partnership, we shape the best results for each client and community, and take that to heart with each of the property owners, and try to maximize the benefit for this. So again, that's just our partners that we've shown there. And again, I promised I would be brief, but I did want to answer any questions anyone has.
Okay, I know, Brandon, you and Tommy are out in that community.
Yeah, just one thing, Mark. I know we discussed this earlier in a meeting that we had, but maybe if you don't mind to briefly explain how you'll gain access to some of these properties, if you don't mind to go over that. I know that was a concern of mine, with this cleanup, but if you don't mind to speak to that.
No, I completely understand. Well, through development of the DSRs, the damage survey reports that made up this project, if you will, many of the property owners had to sign access agreements for that. So that Dwayne Van Hook is in, he said he has that information available. So if we enter a contract with the county, we can gain that information. Of course, that's a great place to start. Who's willing, and of course, who wasn't willing back with the debris removal and the FEMA debris removal. And that's the case. We have Telex on board with us. Telex is their office, their main office is out of Greensboro, but they deal with easements. That's what they do. They deal with easements every day. And so they have easement negotiation, staff to go out and talk about those. Now, we don't anticipate needing easements per se on every project. Some of them are just right of entry. But that being said, we still have professionals that understand what people are going to be upset about, and what may ease their mind and allow that to proceed. But of course, I live here in the county now, and I'll be glad to assist them in any way I can. I'm sure that we'll be asking staff and maybe some of the commissioners to help us as well. We'll do what it takes to put together the right team to go get these accesses, because they're needed so that we can minimize damage for the next storm.
Okay, thank you for that. I know we discussed it, like I said, but I figured it'd be good for the public to hear that coming from you. And not only that, but if you wouldn't mind, I know we mentioned some timeline stuff here in the presentation, but if you could give a timeline maybe on everything. I know we're going to get the debris out sooner, but if you could kind of give a quick timeline on what's going to happen, so the public knows as well.
Yes, certainly. Let me back up just a minute, if you don't mind, if I can. It's trying. Okay, so. Okay, so again, the property access, we have to start there so we understand where we're going in. So 2 to 3 months, we're anticipating on that. And again, with the information that Dwayne has available, maybe that goes a lot quicker. Hopefully, I certainly hope it does. So we presented this as what we thought would be a conservative schedule. Design and permitting, again, 9 to 12 months. We intend to utilize drones for a lot of this. You know, the whole picture's worth 1,000 words. And, you know, show both bidders clarity as to what's required on each project, as well as you just cover so much ground with drones compared to what we did in 2005 when all of it had to be done in the field. Some of it will be done in the field, but a large part of it can be collected with the drones, particularly in the winter months where we are right now. But the design and permit, we hope to collect that information and get those permits out there. We hope to get some blanket permits, for instance, on flood permitting. I expect we'll have 2 or 3 sites that there's quite a bit of cobble and things like that to move to protect infrastructure and roadways in the future. Those might require a detailed flood study, but hopefully we can get a blanket flood study such that we're not really building anything additional. If you will, we're not changing the cross-sectional area of any section, right? But we are going to move debris back and forth so that we improve the hydraulics of it, and we hopefully improve it for the next event. And so we hope to get some blanket permits. If we do, that'll definitely expedite our schedule. And bid documents, again, I'm not too worried about that. Once we get, we know what specs are needed. We have to get the site-specific information with the drones, and we have to have specific grading plans and things like that. But we'll be developing those as we go. So a couple months to put those together, and I think we'll be doing those at different times. We'll be having debris removal, and then we'll go to the restoration sites later that require more permitting. And the other thing is there's so many sites here, I don't think we could possibly get enough people to work on them or get enough debris sites or enough equipment moving to get them all done at once anyway. So I think they're going to have to come in stages. That's just practical. And again, the contract administration and bid solicitation, we put 2 to 3 months on that, but again, it just depends on the environment we realize at the time. Hopefully, we got a lot of motivated people and we got a lot of participation and got a lot of contractors to go around, but certainly everyone knows that's not always been the case in the past couple of years.
That's true.
But we'll hope for the best.
Okay, anybody, Bryant, did you have?
I should have said something to begin with. Keep in mind that we issued an RFQ for proposals actually for the EWP program. We received 2 proposals back from McGill and Resource Institute, and through a subcommittee back on October 24th, we interviewed both, and that was made up of just staff and commissioners. Inslee and Commissioner Rogers participated by phone. So today's presentation is the selection from that committee, and we're bringing it forward to the board to actually give me authority now to negotiate with McGill for this work. I should have said that to begin with, but that's how we got to where we are. We haven't contracted with McGill yet, and so this is that process. Okay.
Again, inspections, actual construction, 2 to 6 months, depending on the site. Obviously, some of the more compact debris sites, that may be a few days. Some of those sites, trout farm's not going to be a few days. There's a lot of damage there. So you get an idea of what we're saying, 2 to 6 months. That could go from 1 to 6 months. Also, contract management, same thing. Depending on the complexity of the project, we've shown 2 to 6 months there, as well as the progress reports and the meetings. And again, I want to mention the drone work. We anticipate doing drone work up front for topographic survey where we can, as well as getting ortho photos to show clarity to our bid documents. But not only that, the biggest part of this with a lot of funding agencies is show me what you did. So we're going to come back and fly the same drone and show everyone exactly what was done so that we think it's a seamless, expedited process to close these contracts out. And the quicker we get those submitted, the quicker the clock starts on those as well. Everyone has a lot of work, and if we can make that easy, we want to do that. And of course, construction closeout, and that's what I'm talking about. You know, we could sit down in front of a TV with our videos before and after and show the funding agencies what was done and how what we said we would do was accomplished. So that's the general idea. And again, debris removal 9 to 14 months, stream stabilization 18 to 26 months, and that's a wide range, but there's a lot to be seen as to what our requirements are and our challenges are on the permitting.
Mark, when does the clock start ticking on this 18 to 26 months? When, I mean, if it started right now, you're looking at, what, January of 25? 26 months?
Well, yes. We would actually like to start work. We have some staff that would be available, specifically our environmental staff that would be involved in a lot of the permitting, and we have some becoming available in December, or the first week of December, and we would like to get started, assuming that we can get a contract awarded. We would certainly like to do that so that we can get the damage survey reports have to be revisited. As you know, we've had a couple of, even since August of 21, we've had a couple of significant events even then that it's changed some of those DSRs. And so we need to go back and find out if they're still current or if they've moved locations and things like that so that we can identify where the work needs to be done. We would like to start in December, so I think that's when the timeline starts. And again, we'll see what happens. And I've already been out to look at some of the sites because I've seen it going up and down 276. But for my own purposes, I wanted to understand what it looked like. And we're proposing, quite frankly, a phased contract. It's almost impossible for us to understand what level of work is going to be required for each site here. So what we're proposing is time for our staff to go out and evaluate, get the debris sites to a bidding stage so that we can have some early successes. And when we ask for an extension on these funds, that we're able to show what we have accomplished and what the county's accomplished through this funding program. And so we want to do that and then evaluate what the level of permitting is and all these, and what the level of effort is going to be required for gaining a right of entry or any easements and things like that. Then we can quantify better what our level of effort is so that we can come back and provide a phase 2 contract that is legitimate with what we found out during our investigation rather than just guessing at this point. I think everyone can appreciate driving up the East Fork and understanding what's going to be required. And of course, I've specifically spoken with Bryant and Chris about which sites do we really want to make sure that we look at restoration, and if there's more money available, then we need to try to request it. And specifically, where the DOT repaired the road, they did a great job, undoubtedly. But will that stay there for 20 years? I don't know. So if we can do anything starting at the Toa slope in that stream, I certainly think we should. And so that's the kind of thing we're talking about there. And we want to identify those. And all we can do is ask. If we give the justification and we ask and we don't get it, then we'll have to act accordingly. And that's the other thing I want everybody to understand is this is not put the river back. We weren't funded. The county was not funded money to put the river back like it was on August 14th or 15th, 2021. There's just not that level of funding. If anybody wants to understand, you can go up to the trout farm and take a look at it and understand, what the budgets are, and you can't put that back just like it was. So we're going to have to do the best we can. We're going to have to request additional funds where we can and see what the response is from the funding agencies. But it's certainly better than zero funds, and so we're going to try to do the best we can with what we have.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is hopefully we're going to target those areas that are most susceptible to another event. I mean, when you say debris removal, a lot of people up the river, what's on their mind is those rock fields. I mean, it's literally filled up the volume of the channel so much with rock that just a small flood event, the river's going to be out again. And
Right.
does that debris removal entail other, like moving rock instead of just woody material?
Debris removal is not considered rock. Debris removal is going
Well,
to be.
I tell you, there's going to be a lot of disappointed people.
Oh,
I mean, I can tell you because I go up there all the time, and there are places where there are hundreds, if not thousands, of cubic yards of rock that has filled in the river channel to where the volumetric flow, it's just not there.
Right.
It's going to be out again.
And that's why, that's what we've discussed, is those are the sites that, and I've been to see some of those sites. I know exactly what you're talking about.
There's about 3 of them you can see from the road right when you drive
Right.
by. The river's going to be back out in the road, and it has been.
Right, so.
It has been since that event. I can
So
attest
our
to that.
intent there would be to get detailed survey, do a detailed design, and request funding to the funding agencies to say, we need X dollars, and this is the plan that we need to make sure that we reestablish a channel and we protect the roadways and the infrastructure and the property that's in the line of those streams.
Well, for example, where the landslide occurred above the Crusoe Fire Department, came down the mountain, the whole river is full of rock that came from a half a mile up there. Boulders as big as Volkswagens, and there's got to be some type of common sense approach here, or that's, you know, we're going to have some, you can go up there and look at it today. All that rock is right out in the river, and what little bit of the flow's pushed all the way over there on the far side of where it used to be. And there's going to be some major problems if we don't get that. When you say debris removal, that catches a lot of people's attention, like, oh boy, we're going to get all that rock out of there so it's not going to flood again. And that's what I would think would be the scope of the mitigation, is to try to prevent something like this from happening again. So I don't know.
That's another level of engineering.
The frustration is on us too, because we've asked not just this program, but we started that request through FEMA because of the severity of the damage. We've only have approved 57 sites, and not to my knowledge, any of them really deal with what you're talking about, is the removal of rock. Most of it is just woody debris, and doing some engineering. I think only engineering on about 15 of the 57 sites. And then Mark mentioned getting the bids. What has been awarded by NRCS, we're very thankful for it, but we don't think that that's enough to do the project. So we want to bring somebody on, McGill, get the bids out, see how short we are, and then go back to the state and ask for additional funds. That's one of the things that's going to really slow the process down, is getting the bids and then going back and asking for more funds. We know the money that's been awarded has debris removal, but it doesn't have any for disposal of the debris. And we have pretty good estimates based on what invoices we paid through FEMA, what that will cost. So we already feel we're short, and that doesn't even expand the scope of the projects you're talking about. But it's sort of frustrating.
But that being said, I'd already mentioned a couple of the sites that I've been to that I understand what you're talking about. So the intent would be to develop a plan for those sites that have any component of stabilization and restoration in them, and support the things that you're talking about, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's evident. But the process to do that, because of the way the funding process happens, is to develop a plan and submit it to them and ask for, you might even have to bid the work. And then when funds are deficient, then we can submit it back and ask for additional funding. Now, it's up to them what the response is. And, maybe we can find additional funding, and there's also, there's the unmet needs money as well. So I think we've looked under every rock, continuing to look under rocks. I know the county has. And we'll do the same, because there's still additional infrastructure money coming. There's no promises, but I think that's the process. That's the process they tell us we have to go through. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And all of this is reimbursable. So that's one of the other issues, is compliance. When we submit invoices and we pay it, then we have to submit for reimbursement. So it's really on us to make sure that everything is all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, so that we can draw down those state funds.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item under agency reports is the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Block Grant update. We have our Public Health Services Division Director, Sarah Henderson. Welcome, Sarah.
Long time no see. And I'm not talking about COVID.
Wearing a mask.
First off, Kirk, thank you for your service to the county, and I appreciate your continued support for public health and social services. I think I speak for all of us, so thank you. All right, so we're going to talk about the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Block Grant. This is a proposal that our staff has been working on for a couple of months now, kind of behind the scenes. So I'm going to give you a very brief overview and then answer any questions that you may have. So the Substance Abuse Treatment and Block Grant program, its objective is to help plan, implement, and evaluate activities that prevent and treat substance abuse. This program provides funds to all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, 6 Pacific jurisdictions, and 1 tribal entity. And I think the biggest thing that I want to stress as we move through this is that this is truly money dedicated to treatment. Oh. Thanks. Oh, back up one. Oh. Well, I think I added one somewhere along the way. That's fine. Or I moved them out of order. We'll get to that one. So before we dive into the project, and you'll see this slide, I think I moved it up a couple of spaces. The online Key Informant survey asked respondents what makes a community healthy. And so the responses that were given were proven resources and programs to help others in need, to find and get them help and better their situations, prevention services and services available for mental health, substance abuse, recognition that all people within the community are fellow human beings and it's not us versus them, and the willingness to partner and address issues holistically and to the best of our ability. So this proposal seeks to prevent overdose and further justice involvement by connecting uninsured individuals with health education and physical and mental health care. To prevent overdose, reduce recidivism, increase linkages to care, and build capacity to respond to substance use and mental health disorders, the Haywood County Health and Human Services Agency is seeking funding, or has sought funding, for connecting justice-involved persons to care and providing post-overdose response. This proposal addresses several areas recommended by the state's opioid and substance use action plan, such as serving those with justice involvement and addressing social determinants of health. It will increase access to by providing case management, linkage to treatment resources, transportation, housing, employment, and other services. We realize that this has to be a holistic approach. This project will build capacity by strengthening a post-overdose referral and outreach system with the local hospital emergency department, local law enforcement, emergency medical services, and the Haywood County Sheriff's Office. Okay. Okay, so organizational readiness and the assessment of the needs. So the service area, this project will serve Haywood County residents who are uninsured and those who are engaged in the recovery court system with pending drugs and alcohol-related crimes. Haywood County, with approximately 62,000 residents, continues to grapple with substance use and mental health disorders. In 2021, Haywood County residents visited North Carolina emergency departments for the following substance use concerns: alcohol abuse and dependence, opioid overdoses, stimulant overdoses, and benzodiazepine overdoses. Mental health issues also included anxiety, mood or psychotic disorders, and suicidal ideations. There are several things that are noteworthy in these. Many of those listed under anxiety, mood, and psychotic disorders were not behavioral health visits. They were actually there for other reasons. So the visits listed are those who actually visited for behavioral health concerns. Emergency department counts are not really a true reflection of overdose because we know that not all of them seek care and not all of them, a lot of them refuse treatment if EMS shows up. This year alone, so for 2022, Haywood County EMS reports having been dispatched to 164 calls that were coded as an overdose. 120 of those, the patient's primary impression was some sort of illegal substance. In addition, any overdose-related call that resulted in a cardiac arrest would have been coded as a cardiac arrest, not as an overdose, so that we know our numbers are not necessarily accurate. Thanks, Amy. So the increasing prevalence of fentanyl and related analogs in the drug supply has fatal implications on our county, and we've discussed this time and time again. Of the confirmed substance use deaths in 2020, nearly 13% of those involved fentanyl. In 2021, that number grew to 32%. So our local agencies have used various strategies to combat overdose. We know that our law enforcement and first responders, our emergency department staff, all of those people are on the front lines. Our partnerships with Meridian Behavioral Health and Appalachian Community Services as they increase their efforts to offer diverse treatments and recovery services. And then Haywood County Health and Human Services has actually made this one of our priorities for the last couple of community health assessments, so probably since about 2015, I believe. Thanks, Amy. There's my slide. You can skip that one. All right, so recent data from county adults includes 12.5% of residents reported binge drinking in the last month. 36.3% of those of our residents reported being negatively impacted by substance use, either themselves or someone else. 23% of them experienced more than 7 days of poor mental health in the last month, and 10.1% of them experienced more than 4 adverse child effects. And ACEs is a big project that Health and Human Services has also taken on. So a study published in 2017 found that 79% of inmates in the Haywood County Detention Center met the DSM-5 criteria for moderate or severe substance use disorder, and 73% of those could have been classified as an opioid use disorder. Of those with criteria consistent with opioid use disorder, 69% of inmates reported injection drug use. So the goal of this is that we realize that our population is going to require a holistic approach. And kind of somebody to take them in and take them under their wing from the very beginning. Thanks, Amy. So organizational qualifications. Health and Human Services Agency has become increasingly active in addressing the opioid crisis since 2015. Like I said, it's been in our community health assessment for the last couple of years. We also possess the necessary skills in program management, data analysis, organization, and relationships within the community, organizations, and stakeholders to lead this project. We currently track and report fatal and non-fatal overdose data. We've hosted and participated in opioid forums. We lead the local substance use coalition. We participate in the perinatal substance exposure collaboration, and we also help implement messaging and awareness campaigns. And we also provide lockboxes upon request. In addition, the Community Linkages to Care program, which we've reported on before, has a partnership with Meridian Behavioral Health Services. And we link residents to mental health and substance use assessments, post-overdose response, short-term housing and information about housing resources, medication-assisted treatment, and then food, hygiene, clothing, and basic first aid resources. Also, as a consolidated agency, Health and Human Services, we realize that we can see clients there and we can address more than one need. So we can also address things like Work First, any food and nutrition services. We have a dental office. We can get them set up for application for Medicaid if they qualify, and we can also do any HIV, STI, or communicable disease testing. So let's talk about the description and the sustainability. This project will serve at-risk individuals who have justice involvement and no insurance. Counseling, education, physical and behavioral health screenings, and linkage to medication are key components. The Haywood County Health and Human Services Agency proposes hiring 2 full-time staff members and 1 temporary staff member, and I'm going to cover those on the next slide and give you a little bit of insight into those. Once a participant receives a referral to our program, twice monthly visits at a minimum will begin with our agency and a provider. This frequency promotes accountability and a continuity of care that they can guarantee. Treatment services include both residential and outpatient options. Outpatient treatment is our primary option for most participants, but we do have built into our proposal a group of 5 participants who would have the opportunity to enroll in the UNC Horizons program. So when we talk about seeing them at our agency, in addition to substance use and mental health treatment, we can also see them for physical exams related to STI or HIV or communicable disease visits. We can do immunizations, reproductive health, women's health, and like I mentioned before, we're also kind of one-stop shopping, being consolidated agency, so we can quickly incorporate social services if need be. The long-term residential treatment that we're talking about are places like Old Vineyard in Winston-Salem or Healing Transitions in Raleigh. The only thing that we cannot do is an inpatient medical treatment with this funding. So this briefly covers the positions that we're asking for. One of them is a public health nurse too, who will have the same training as the public health nurses that I have in the building. This person will work as a liaison between the agency and the provider and the Haywood County Detention Center to provide education and treatment and testing. The physician extender 2 will be dedicated to these clients. They'll be housed in our building and our clinic, and will work hand in hand with the jail liaison also, so that when we bring them in as a referral, they've got somewhere to go and someone to see, and we're creating that continuity of care from the very beginning. The health educator position right now is a PRN, kind of a temporary part-time position. A big key to this is education. We'd really like to partner with the school system to kind of get that school-aged, maybe middle school age, where we can really start doing some prevention education, because we realize that at some point we have to break the cycle. So that's a key piece. If funded, we'll work immediately to secure subcontracts with behavioral health providers, including a telehealth provider. That's one thing that we really want to have in the agency. That face-to-face with Meridian or Appalachian Community Services is always going to be our first choice. But we do realize that there's a lack of providers. Hiring in healthcare is really hard right now, and retaining employees is even harder. So we would like to have a telehealth option on site, because for instance, out of recovery court, you're talking an 18 to 24-month period, so we're hoping to reintegrate them into society and get them housing and get them jobs, and we realize that if you work a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, it's a little hard for us to ask you to take off work to go to a mental health provider, so we'd like to have that option where it can be a little more flexible. This is just a list of some of the community partnerships that we already have. We know that this project will strengthen that local capacity by connecting the county's public health, law enforcement, judicial system, and medical and behavioral health agencies. So here's a brief overview of the evaluation, because we all want to see the start and the middle and the end, and see how we're doing. So evaluation of this project will be on a monthly basis. It will include documentation and monitoring and the number of indicators that assess the proposed process and outcomes. Data collection sheets and participant feedback will be primary methods. And I've just listed some of the indicators and performance measures. The proposal actually has probably twice as many in it. And those will fluctuate as we get into the proposal and kind of see what data we really have to go on. Another thing that's not included up there is the recovery court system will have a set of guidelines from Judge Weejay and Monica and Judge Leslie, basically outlining when you enter into the recovery court program, here's your A, B, C, and D. And so that's also not included up there, but also included in the proposal. So that is a very brief overview, I feel like. Questions, concerns?
Did you have anything to comment on it, Brian?
Sarah mentioned the tie-in with the recovery court, and the state funded the recovery court for 2 years, but those funds cannot be used for treatment. So we were fortunate enough to get this grant from Representative Pless. It's actually a federal grant that came to the state, so we have about a year to pilot this project. We're hopeful that through the project, if the board accepts and appropriates the grant, that we can use the data collection to demonstrate to the state that it works, and they'll continue funding because as Sarah showed, we have a really big need, but there's just a lack of treatment funds. There's a lack of beds, things like that. So the recovery court will bring that accountability in. We'll tie folks that are in that system to this project, and to sort of pivot. David, through economic development, has worked to where we can actually get folks off drugs and alcohol and tie them to a job. So if you'd like him to come up and speak a few minutes about that, and then maybe questions for both Sarah and David.
And I think accountability has been something we've been looking for as a board for these programs.
I agree.
And the public's been asking for that.
Good evening, Commissioners. So, we started thinking about this process and we started hearing about, the Through Care program. And then, with the Recovery Court and now with the Human and Health Services program. So we've got a lot of things on the front side to help get people clean. But what happens to them after they get clean? So one of the things that we started working with the Southwest Commission is a Recovery to Work program, or a Haywood Hires program. So we sat down with some of our employers and talked about, is this a program that you would be interested in? And every one of the folks that we met with said yes. And so we had a meeting back in the summer, and we met with providers and to talk about this program and how do we facilitate this. Because one of the things that other programs that have started this has had a pipeline issue about where folks are coming from, and getting them in there to the work ready program. Because some folks, of course, are going to be not work ready at a time. So we are very, fortunate here that our community is really behind, the programs that Sarah talked about, the judges program, recovery court program. And so we're going to take that next step to help those individuals. And it also may mean, helping them, with transportation. That seems to be one of the biggest barriers. So we're going to have to reach out to some of the faith-based, community to help us as well too. Because some of these jobs are not going to be, standard 8 to 5 jobs, and you can get, to our transportation, from mountain projects. Some jobs are going to be from, 5 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, getting back home. So we're working on those issues as well. But it's, it's important that we get people all the way through and make sure they understand that there is, light at the end of the tunnel. And as, we've heard, over and over again throughout our lives, a good job solves a lot of things, and it helps a lot of issues. And there's, some good jobs in Haywood County. I was preparing some data for Christian, and the latest data we had was back in the spring. There was still 1,200 jobs open in Haywood County and 900 folks on unemployment. So no matter what we do, there's still a gap there. So this is one way, an aspect to help, fill that gap. And, we're going to help those folks who are willing to help themselves and get, fully into recovery. So we're excited about this because I'm a firm believer. I've had, more than my fair share of second chances, and I want to make sure everybody else has one as well too.
Have any questions or other comments?
Maybe just a quick comment. As Chairman Inslee pointed out, I think the biggest concern with all our folks, I know everybody wants to help, but accountability has been the biggest concern. And I think with this program, we'll have that. And Sarah, if you don't mind, in layman's terms, can you briefly describe what will happen? I know when we have an inmate or an individual that goes before the court, can you take it from there and give us a brief overlay?
I can give you the kindergarten version of recovery court because the expert's not here. So basically what happens, and Bryant can chime in too, basically what happens is the judge and the DA's office and DSS and law enforcement and whoever happens to be involved basically will kind of pick and choose candidates based on certain criteria. What those criteria are behind the scenes, that's above me. They will enter a guilty plea to those charges, and then they will enter into the recovery court program. So it's an estimated 18 to 24 months, and it's kind of one of those that if you do all of the things that are expected of you, and you see the judge every other week, and you're meeting, your assessments with us, with the provider, and if there's, medication-assisted treatment involved, and you're taking your meds, and drug screens are negative, and you're going to work, and you're meeting all the expectations of the program, then there's a big reward at the end, because then those charges, if I'm not mistaken, are dismissed at the end of the program. So they truly are giving you a second chance to make things right. Other referrals will probably come for our own clinic. We see a lot of women in our clinic who meet criteria that have perinatal substance use problems. So we're going to start with a very small group and then grow from there is the goal. But it's not going to be a quick fix. I will tell you that the proposal does have the expectation for failure. We do realize that we're dealing with people with addiction, and the thought of them coming in and, being on the straight and narrow from that point forward is just an unrealistic expectation. And if that is our expectation, we're going to fail. So when they do slip, the goal is to reintegrate them quickly, get them actively re-engaged, and then we pick up and move on from there. So, we do have that expectation. Nobody's perfect.
Can you said, and I made notes about it just so I might have heard it wrong, that there will be a group of 5 participants that will be inpatient? Is that what you said? How will that work? And will we rotate those people out of inpatient?
So usually those, and I hate to use the word inpatient, so we'll call it a residential treatment because that's something that is allowable with funding. And the difference is whether or not it's a medical facility. So there's no medical detox program. And ultimately, these, if they go to Raleigh, like to Healing Transition, they can leave. They're not
being held.
They're not being held. But there's a cost associated with that. There's transportation to and from, and there's a cost associated with them being there. So as part of the proposal, we built in basically 5 golden tickets for people that come to us and say, hey, I just can't do this here. I need a change of scenery. I need something long-term. I need to get away from where I am. And so we've got that spot available.
I can see how that would work, because if they're going to go back to their friends, and they're going to encourage them to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, it's truly a lifestyle change.
Exactly.
It's basically, out with the old and in with the new, and that's really hard when you have nothing to begin with.
I think your numbers are very interesting. About a study published in 2017 found that 79% of the inmates in the Haywood County Detention Center met the criteria for moderate or severe substance use disorder. And 73% of those could be classified as an opioid use disorder. I think those are very telling statistics. And I've said repeatedly, small steps is what we're going to have to take to get it to turn the ship. I think that's something Bryant says a lot about. It takes a long time to turn a big ship, and those small steps are very important. So I'm encouraged.
Dr. Jabins tells me that I have to stop looking at it like a problem with a solution and start looking at it a dilemma that I can make better.
Brandon, to help Sarah out some as far as the legal process goes, it's somewhat like what we call a deferred prosecution, where you have someone that is basically a user, not a seller. This is not going to be offered to people that are out there distributing drugs and making money, and it's also probably not going to be offered to people who have, a bad criminal record. If you have multiple convictions, they're probably not going to offer this. But if you have one conviction, or if you haven't had a conviction and you're charged with something like this, you go in and plead like she indicated, and then the judge goes, okay, you've pled to this. We're going to defer the sentencing, defer the prosecution, or defer the sentencing of this. And if you complete this program, we'll go back and dismiss that charge, so it cleans that record up. For somebody who's had multiple charges or multiple convictions, it's not really going to help them much. So but I think this is a great program, and it needs to be out there and it needs to be offered so people can utilize it. And like you said, it's only for those that are going to utilize it and apply it. But if we don't have it there to offer them, then we can't get them off of it.
Any other questions for Sarah or Dave? Okay, do we vote on this next time, or what?
No, at the next meeting, we hope to have the documents from the state for you, the board, to approve.
And this grant came from, I know you said, but
It's federal money that came through the state. I think
Right.
it's Health and Human Services, or DHHS is actually, and it's a reimbursable grant as well. So we've already had conversations with the state and outlined this to make sure that when we submit invoices for reimbursement, that it will be reimbursed.
are we kind of plowing new ground, or are other counties doing this?
No, this is kind of new territory,
Okay, well,
especially to
good.
be housed in
That's
public
good.
health.
Yeah, good. Well, Haywood County has a way of doing new things, and they're imitated, so I like that.
We'll see.
Yeah. Forward thinking. Okay. Anything else? Okay. All right, thanks,
you.
Sarah. Okay, so we'll move, next order of business is a discussion, adjustment to the agenda, and I have two things. One is to add a closed session to the agenda, which will be 143-381-11A5 regarding property acquisition, and the other is to move item number 5 of the consent agenda, and I want to call it item 1A in the regular agenda, because Sheriff Christopher made it out today, and I want to honor him. So I'll entertain a motion that we suspend the rules and add these two items.
I'll make that motion.
Second. That's the motion to suspend the rules, and the second to suspend the rules. Now you make the motion to add them.
Okay.
You'll just move them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay? Can I do all that at
Yeah,
once?
I can. I'll move to.
But you had to-
After we suspended the rules, I'll move that we
Okay.
add item 5.
Okay.
Move item 5 to regular agenda, and then add your closed session.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, now, go ahead. You'll make a motion to,
I think we got it.
oh, okay, we're good, okay. Are we good, Amy? Okay, yeah, okay. Very good.
We had 2 motions and second, and then 2 votes.
Okay. Okay, then under the consent agenda, does any of the commissioners, we'll move to that, this is the next order of business. Does any commissioners have any questions on items 1 through 4 and items 6 through 9 of the consent agenda? Okay, then, anybody? Don't want to move too quick. Let's see, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented, with the exception of item 5.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay. Okay,
Kevin, if I could just comment, I mean, on here on the consent, on that consent agenda was the resolution honoring Chief Deputy Sheriff Jeff Haynes for 33 years of service. And,
Yes.
and so, I mean, some people don't hear that, and I just want to make, I know the sheriff's here, so we can honor him, but, I mean, 33 years of law enforcement service is a long time, and I know the sheriff has relied on him, and want to make sure that at least we say his name this evening and,
Yes.
and all that he's done for this sheriff and for law enforcement in Haywood County.
and he couldn't be here tonight is why he's not here. He had a plan to be away, so. Okay. Thank you for doing that, Kirk. Okay, then we'll move to item 1A of the regular agenda, which is to request approval of a resolution honoring Sheriff Greg Christopher for 43 years of law enforcement service and awarding of his issued badge and sidearm. And I'd like for Kirk to read that resolution.
Okay. This is a resolution honoring Sheriff Greg Christopher for 43 years of law enforcement service and awarding of his issued badge and sidearm. Whereas Sheriff Christopher joined the Haywood County Sheriff's Office as the appointed and later elected sheriff on March 4th, 2013, during which time he has served the citizens of Haywood County with the highest level of dedication, commitment, and integrity, all the while upholding the rights of all in adherence to the North Carolina and the United States Constitution. And whereas Sheriff Christopher's service and dedication to the office of the sheriff, the citizens of Haywood County, and his many accomplishments in the field of law enforcement during 43 years of total credited service are hereby recognized and commended with the final 10 years serving as the elected sheriff of Haywood County. Whereas North Carolina General Statute 20-187.2 provides that retiring deputies of the Haywood County Sheriff's Office may receive, at the sheriff's discretion, the issued sidearm of such retiring deputy at a price determined by the Board of Commissioners and upon securing a permit as required by North Carolina General Statute Section 14-402. And whereas Sheriff Greg Christopher has served as a member of the Haywood County Sheriff's Office and is retired from the Haywood County Sheriff's Office effective December 5th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved by the Haywood County Board of Commissioners as follows. Sheriff Greg Christopher is hereby authorized in accordance with the provision of North Carolina General Statute Section 20-187.2 to allow the transfer to Sheriff Christopher. That's pretty much a first to transfer from to the other, but anyway, I've never read that. The badge worn by him during his service with the Haywood County Sheriff's Office, and Sheriff Greg Christopher is hereby authorized in accordance with the provision of North Carolina General Statute 20-187.2 to allow the transfer to Sheriff Christopher his issued service sidearm, a Glock 9mm model G43X-serial number BTTD982, upon the securing of a permit as required by North Carolina General Statute 14-402, and upon paying the price of $194.05. Be it further resolved, the Haywood County Board of Commissioners recognizes and thanks Sheriff Greg Christopher for his dedication, or for his dedicated service to Haywood County and its citizens, adopted this 21st day of November, 2022. And I will make that motion to approve that resolution.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Sheriff, do you want to come up and say something? Maybe you don't, but if you, we'd love for you to come up. Yeah, sure.
Let's ask Miss Sherry to come up as well, if you don't
That's right.
mind. Do you care to come up with him? She's been his real sidearm. I know he carries a sidearm.
I want to thank Kevin for allowing me to read that. And as I've mentioned multiple times about Sheriff Christopher, Greg, is that he and I have spent a lot of time together over the years. Our boys grew up together and played basketball and baseball together. And we coached many a basketball and baseball game, and a lot of practices. You coach the games, but there's a whole lot of practicing that goes in there. And I always knew he was quite the politician. He could always handle the referees and the umpires a whole lot better than I.
Did you appoint him to do that?
Yeah. And he's been a great friend too, and a wonderful sheriff. You have made the last 10 years very easy for us as commissioners because of the job you did as sheriff. And I really thank you for that.
Thank you, Kurt, and all the commissioners. I just want to say that it has been a true honor to serve the people in Haywood County. Whenever that I was given this job 10 years ago, I had no idea whether I could even be the sheriff or not. But I jumped in there, and with the help of some really great people, to include our Chief Deputy Jeff Haynes, Major Jason Smiley, and a group of captains and lieutenants, and just people who wanted to come to work each day and make a difference in this county, then that has made my job a whole lot easier than it could have. I want to say that because of the commissioners that has been sitting here over the course of the last 10 years, what you have done is you have improved law enforcement services in our county substantially. You've paid our employees just about what they're worth we still need just a little bit more money. And I'll continue advocating for our guys and girls, because at the end of the day, there is no harder job. And it's just not hard on the outside, but it's hard on the inside with those detention officers and our comm center employees. But the commissioners has done a great job in supporting the sheriff's office and supporting its citizens by helping us the way that you have. For things that I've come up here and stood at this podium and asked for, we have gotten, but it's because it was needed. And there's very few counties in Western North Carolina that has the equipment that we have and has the services that we have to provide to the citizens. And it goes without saying that the 5 people that are sitting there is really what makes the difference. I can get up here and give you those numbers and do the PowerPoints and the different things that we've talked about through the years, but the 5 people sitting right here is who makes the difference for the people in our county when it comes to law enforcement. I'm getting ready to turn the sheriff's office over to a sheriff-elect that I believe is going to do an outstanding job. He's been at the sheriff's office every day since the election, and I gave him an office there within our office and a vehicle, and I'm doing everything that I can, along with the rest of our staff, to make sure that the services that have been provided will continue. And so I really thank everybody that is a part of this county government, but more especially the 5 people that sit right there that really makes the difference when it comes to what we need as law enforcement to continue doing the job. Our job just continues to change. It gets tougher and tougher. The number of calls that our guys and girls go to that involve dangerous weapons, mental health issues, drug issues, domestic violence, just continue to increase. So on behalf of the citizens and the sheriff's office employees, I appreciate each one of y'all. And I have to say that I have a praying wife. And because I have a praying wife, first of all, we're still married. Second of all, she's been the type of lady that I can come home to. And regardless of what kind of day that I've had, she's made a home for me to get to enjoy before I went back the next day. And so I appreciate my wife and I appreciate my family as well. Just thank God for Haywood County, and I look forward to seeing really good things continue here. And thank you very much for everything that y'all have done for me personally. Thank you. Thank you.
Sheriff, WOS came by today, and I don't know what they use, but I told them that you'd done a really great job. You were thrown a curveball when you got there because the jail, we've been working on that, but a lot of people don't realize that the jail was, when we built that jail, I think the jail had 90 beds and we had 40 beds in the annex or somewhere in that neighborhood. And the state basically the annex is outdated, the 40 beds. So you lost those, and then you had to house the misdemeanants, which was around 30 to 40, would you say? At times. So you have to house those, which we weren't counting on in 2004. And so the state basically passed, and what the misdemeanants do, they don't go to prison, they go to the jail. And so the state pushed that down on us. To save their jail population, their prison population, which meant the jail population had to be taken care of. So, and what you did, you were proactive in doing the faith-based programs, which helped change people's lives. by allowing the churches to come in and minister to these people, and you change their hearts, you're going to change their actions. And that's exactly what you've done. And I know I've said this 1,000 times, but I really appreciate you doing that because Christ can change your heart and he can change your actions. And that's exactly what needs to happen, because faith-based programs work, and you made the example of that. So I don't think the citizens realize the effort that you've put into it by allowing these programs to flourish and to be there. And then it's helped change people's lives, and it's kept the jail population down to where we just can't keep it down anymore. We've got to add on to the jail. But that has saved the taxpayers so much money, because we've not had to hire staff for the inmates. We've not had to feed them and all that takes place that we have to do that. So sometimes I wonder if the public really realizes the good job that you've done by really thinking outside the box and plowing new ground, if you will. Because I know you had told me that you talked to a jail inspector one time, and he was shocked that what your jail population was when you first got here in 2013 and what it is now versus and what it's been over the years. It didn't explode like it did in every other county. So that shows to me that it works. So just from this commissioner, I thank you for all your hard work, and you're definitely a true public servant, and I appreciate your wife. I tell you, you're a praying wife and a praying mother. I had a praying mother and I had a praying wife, but I know my mother prays for me every day. And I know if somebody prays for you every day, that definitely helps. And that helps kind of move things in your direction, if you will. So, but I know how hard it is for a wife to have to, the man you really love, and people are constantly saying things about him that aren't true and that aren't appreciated, but you hang in there, and I know you know what's best and everything. So I appreciate all the work that you did and the praying that you did, because I know it helps for sure. Do you want to say something?
Just to add a few words to what Kevin said. Got to know the sheriff real well over the last several years, and I hope that relationship continues. One of the best parts about him retiring is he is my neighbor. So hopefully he can watch after my homestead when I'm not around. But glad to have him as a neighbor, and look forward to the relationship that my family will continue to build with yours. And as Kevin said and Kirk said in the resolution that we read, Sheriff is a very conservative, physical, responsible individual, and I appreciate that in you. You saved Haywood County taxpayers a lot of money over the years by looking after our money. And I appreciate that, and the professionalism that you bring to the Sheriff's Department. It don't go unnoticed, and I know that everybody appreciates that and appreciates what you've done there. And I know that our Sheriff-elect, Mr. Wilkie, will continue that process of professionalism. And again, I just want to thank you for all the years of service, not only here at the Sheriff's Department, but with the Highway Patrol. Putting that uniform on and the badge and a gun on a daily basis and going out risking your life is something that needs to be commended. And I hope that you and Miss Sherry will enjoy your retirement and sit on the porch, like I said, and look over my way occasionally to make sure there's nothing going on that shouldn't be. But we appreciate you. We appreciate your service, and we hope you enjoy your retirement.
I'd just like to echo what's been said, and I appreciate Sheriff and Sherry, their presence in the community and the job that you did for Haywood County. And, I've often said that a true hero is not somebody that can run the football down the field and score a touchdown, outrun everybody, or dunk a basketball, jump higher than anybody. A true hero is somebody that's willing to lay down their life every single day for their brother. And law enforcement folks, you lay your life down every single day. When you put that badge on and strap a gun on, and you commit yourself to the service of the people. And all of our Leos, veterans, you're the true heroes. And we celebrate with you your retirement. I see a grin on Sherry's face. Greg, I don't know it's going to go very well for you. That honey-do list, it may be very, very long. So if you need any help, give me a call. So appreciate all your service. And it's been a pleasure to serve 4 years with you as a sheriff. And And again, I appreciate the way you've been a good steward of the department and needs-based. I think you made a comment about that, needs-based requests, and we appreciate that.
I had the opportunity when I first came on the board to spend an afternoon in the sheriff's office. And I want to say something that struck me, and I've told many people this story and probably never you, is we were in the detention center, and there was a gentleman there who spoke to you who is being held in the detention center, and you were as kind and as honorable and as respectful to him as you would be today to anybody in this room. And that struck me so much about your character. And so it is because of your character that we have seen great leadership come out. And I mean that so genuinely. It touched me so much that you were the same with him as that you had been with me. And I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate Sherry. I've gotten to know her a little bit over the last couple of years, and you're just, not that you need my vote of whatever, but you're just fine folks, and I wish you the best in retirement. Yeah.
Amen to that. Okay, well, thank you, Sheriff. Okay, our next item is, I'm calling it 1B, which was originally 1, but it's to request approval of a resolution to recognize the community of Sawnook and request placement of signs. And I know, Bryant, you're on this, but we also have Gary Arrington. And do you want Gary?
Please.
Yeah, Gary, if you come up and let us know what you're doing. And this is a great thing.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Brian's making me do this tonight. But I'm from the Sawnook community, representing the community, and I'd like to present this resolution to you. Whereas Sawnook, with the E on the end of it, that's the traditional spelling, is a Cherokee family name, long established in western North Carolina before the appearance of the first European settlers. And whereas in the western part of Haywood County, in the area just east of Jackson County boundary, at the Balsam Mountain Gap, and west of the town limits of Waynesville, the unincorporated community of Sawnook, spelled as I have it on my cap without the E, has been identified on U.S. Geological Survey maps since the late 19th century. And whereas the Sawnook community is generally defined by the boundaries of the Sawnook Fire Service District and the Sawnook Voting Precinct, and has 2 major highways that pass through it. And whereas the Sawnook Community Organization has requested the Haywood County Commissioners to recognize the unincorporated Sawnook community and request the North Carolina Department of Transportation to place official signs identifying the community of Sawnook along Old Balsam Road, that's State Road 1243. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Haywood County hereby, 1, recognize the unincorporated Sawnook community, and 2, request the North Carolina Department of Transportation to install signs identifying the Sawnook community at 2 locations along Old Balsam Road, State Road 1243, 1 near the western town limits of Waynesville, and 1 near the western terminus of Old Balsam Road, State Road 1243, where it intersects with US 2374, both as generally identified on the accompanying map. And I hope you have that map. I don't have it here, but I think you do have it, so be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
So you're going to be adding to the community clubs, aren't you?
Yes.
Sawnook?
Yes.
Which is,
in fact, we just had our countywide meeting last Monday, I believe,
yeah.
And we appreciate the commissioner's support of our club as part of that group.
Okay, great. And those groups are so, they help the community do so many things, and really, it's good to see that one's getting started, because I know there's been one that kind of went away, or maybe even a couple, but it's good to see them be added back. So I appreciate y'all. I appreciate your leadership in doing that.
Thank you.
Where will y'all be meeting at?
I'm sorry?
Where will you be meeting at?
Well, we don't have a facility yet,
Right.
but we do meet sometimes at the fire department and sometimes at Pleasant Boston Baptist Church.
Okay. And then if somebody wants to be a part of that, how are you reaching folks for that?
We have a Facebook page that is just,
okay,
that's
great.
kind of how our group was born.
Okay.
And last year, we undertook an effort to try to increase the number of people on that Facebook page. We had yard signs printed and put them out in the community with our information on. And the other thing that happened was that the Hoochie Hut controversy kind of broke on our Facebook page first. And suddenly everybody in our community wanted to be on our Facebook page. So we've had about a 26% increase in the members to our page.
Great, that's great.
Oh, I've been here 20 years and nobody said hoochie in here.
You can add that to your list, Kirk.
That's the greatest thing to ever happen to your community club. By the way, I like your hat. That's pretty.
Thank you. Thank you. We had a reunion a couple of years ago, about maybe 3 years ago, and had the hats made up for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gary. So we need to approve this resolution. So I'll entertain a motion, we approve item 2 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
It's 1B.
1B, I'm sorry, 1B. And I made it 1B, so.
You did.
Thank you, Kirk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, then item 2, we're back to normal now. Request approval of amendments to the Haywood County Recreation Advisory Board bylaws. Parks and Recreation Director Ian Smith. Welcome, Ian.
Good evening, Commissioners. What we have here is a request for amendments to the bylaws for the Haywood County Rec Advisory Board. The first amendment is changing the appointed date by the board. Previously, it was set for September 1st of that year. We're just putting in language that states that the date appointed by the Board of Commissioners. So if we have somebody that vacates their seat, let's say in May of a year, we don't have to wait till September 1st to fill that seat. Second, adding language that if the advisory board deems somebody that is on the committee, on the advisory board is too detrimental to lose, they could serve past their 2-year consecutive term limit at board approval. The third would be changing the regular schedule meeting date from the first Tuesday of every month to the second Thursday of every other month, beginning in August of that year. We find that don't have enough to warrant a monthly meeting. Otherwise, it would be just a lot of program updates. Every other month, Axis have a full sizable meeting. And then the third and final one just adds that any amendment procedures be brought before the Board of County Commissioners, clarifying some language that was seemingly left out from previous versions. And that's all I have.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Just kind of housekeeping. Okay. I entertain a motion, we approve item 2 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is to request approval of a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant contract between Haywood County and the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources in the amount of $500,000 to help fund the bike park to be located at the Francis Farm landfill. Our Community and Economic Development Director, David Francis.
Good evening again, Commissioners. So the Park and Recreation Trust Fund started over a year ago when we conducted our master plan. Part of making the grant application for the Park and Recreation Trust Fund was to update our master plan. Just go over a little bit about what, Amy, So about a year ago, young Ian and I were out with our consultants going to various places and meeting with people where they had a chance to visually pick what items they would like to see over the next course of 5 to 10 years in the county for recreation. You see natural surface trails, pickleball, paved trails, camping sites, bicycle pump track, climbing walls, accessible playground, amphitheater. Okay. And one of the things I thought was telling about this, if you remember from our discussion, was there was not a thing in there about updating ball fields. We had transitioned over to to this new outdoor economy that we've talked about a little bit. So jogging and walking trails, 48.55%, greenway trails, hiking trails, bicycle trails, natural-based recreation opportunities at 31, eco-adventure, playgrounds, picnic areas, indoor swimming pool, pickleball, special aquatic features, camping facilities. All of those were above 20% when people did the survey online. The survey said, rank in order of importance, the top 5 facilities that could be developed or improved in Haywood County, being 1 your highest priority, 5 you're being your lowest. So you see that a lot of different aspects of what people anticipate recreation over the next few years. So the recommendations that came from the master plan survey was to update the playground equipment at Allens Creek Park, install fitness stations there, install a rock climbing boulder there, install pickleball courts and open space between the parking lot and walking path at Allens Creek Park, repair the sidewalk at Clanton Street Park, acquire land and repair a master plan for a proposed district park, develop new recreation programming involving arts and crafts and theater, access current staffing levels. And then the next, develop, construct Clanton Street Apartment Master Plan, proposed district park, and other programming offerings, and again, assessing current staffing levels. Okay. So one of the things that you mentioned, of course, there was the new district park, about for a bike park there. For a new park to offer bike trails and associated amenities, future development of trails and greenways, which we'll be talking in the future about that as well. So go ahead. So when we come up with this crazy idea of how to utilize this property at Francis Farm landfill and how we can make use of that excess property there, so we decided to put a bike park out there. And when we were listening in on the part of application to the folks down in Raleigh, that they had a lot of questions about putting a bike park near a landfill. And they had some good questions. But this design, as you can see here, it has a pump track, which we'll talk a little bit more about, a skills course, has a playground, and has amenities such as a pavilion, restrooms, and putting that on the property that's not part of the CAP program that we did. This is some of the excess buffer property that we had to purchase to bring us into compliance a few years ago. Okay. And so, with that design, we worked with another designer to come up with the pump track. So, and I'll show you pictures here in the pump track. But on the picture that you see on the right is the pump track. And then above that, going across the upper page, is an intermediate course. And then in the middle track is a skills course. And there you see the little tiny oval there. That is a baby pump track. That was the initial design that we come up with. And so part of this design process, that we had a steering committee for the bike park, also working in conjunction with the Recreation Advisory Board as well, too. So both of these plans were approved by both entities. Okay, next design. And which is a little bit lighter there. So now you can see the pump track with all the little dips and valleys that you go through. So you start out, there's a jump off place right in the middle there. So you can go to the pump track, you can go to the intermediate. So the intermediate has these 5-foot jump up and it comes back down. Then there's the skills course, you can see the tunnels there. But the pump track, is you get started off the landing there, and your inertia keeps you going around, up and down, up and down. I can see excitement already there. You're going to be one of the first ones. Yeah. So one of the things that we looked at, in this process is, what is a complement to Chestnut Mountain? This does not, create any competition to Chestnut Mountain. A totally different kind of park. Because, some things about Chestnut Mountain, if you've seen that, I'm a little scared to ride. Ian rode Saturday, but I'm still a little intimidated about riding. But this is a way for people to get in, children to get in, learn, a safe place to learn to bike ride. Because you think about all the things that we have in the county, we don't have a place where you can go learn bike riding. We have trails, but we don't have this kind of amenity. And this is one of the fastest growing amenities on the bicycle element that we have in the country right now. So if you go to the next slide, Amy. So you can see this is the pump track in action. Gaston County, where some of this idea came from, hosts a pump track event each year with Red Bull. It's our intention to go after the Red Bull Series that will bring competition events to the county. So it also has an aspect of economic development with it as well, too. So when we made the application back in April, the county put $500,000 aside from the American Rescue Plan money for our match for this. We were successfully awarded the grant in August, and what you have before you is the application for that match. Now, Amy, if you can back up just a little bit to 2 slides. So when we had the first initial design that was submitted, we had the skills course was over to, beyond where the pump track is, and we had a little bit over there. And so with the second design we brought everything into a little bit tighter, footprint. This sits on roughly about 2/10 of an acre. So part of that is that we were reducing our footprint, reducing the road, the paths, and also what we're reducing down is, we're going to combine a pavilion, bathroom, and shade area, shelter is all going to be in one, and maybe one other shelter. So we've reduced our footprint, and hopefully we're reducing our costs down as well too. Upon approval of this grant application, the county, we have solicited funds. Amy, sorry to keep interrupting you. We solicited funds from Haywood County Health Foundation. We received a $50,000 grant. From the Tourism Development Authority, we received a $150,000 grant for the skills course. We've got some county budget in there. We are processing now, working on a North Carolina Recreation Trails program for $100,000. And we also have 2 other donors that we're working with now that are contributing money for the program. So we're also going to be raising money and funds for the bike park. We're working with Haywood Advancement Foundation to be able to accept those donations because they're a 501c3, so folks will have the ability to have a tax deduction, going towards the bike park. So we've got a little bit of work ahead of us, but I'm excited about bringing this amenity to Haywood County. I think it is a very good complement, and we are taking what I said before, we're taking some some lemons and turning it into some good lemonade, and it'll be something that'll be a lasting thing for Haywood County to have over the next few years.
Good job on getting all the grants. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah,
that's great.
It's a team effort. Mr. Cathy's group helped us a lot in that as well too. So it's good there.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. It's great to be able to take that old landfill and be able to utilize it, and the public can use it for some good, especially for recreation.
Yeah, and this was a buffer, was what this was bought for, is a buffer.
The buffer, correct.
So it's really not, and you said that, we're not on the landfill face or anything or on any trash. It's just the buffer we had to buy between the landfill and the stream, and this is a great use for that, is to be able to do that, so. And, recreation is all about getting young people, giving them something to do. And like you said, the ball fields, just, kids are going away from that and they're doing the other things.
One of the things that, in anticipation of this, that we started, and, one of the, about, we've been, Ian will be later in the year and talk about what the programming that we did over the past year. And then, this outdoor, recreation, we're doing fly fishing, we're doing fly tying. And part of this is we started a mountain bike riding class. Learn how to ride a mountain bike. And, it was a unique thing. for the county. And we have a great board member who's a expert mountain bike rider and is NECA certified. And so that, having that kind of a board member on the advisory board, and then, we've been able to pull some other coaches from out over in Buncombe County to come and help our kids as well. Ian's very dedicated. He loads those. We wrote a grant several years ago, and we wrote a grant for mountain bikes. And so he loads those mountain bikes up, takes them over to the place where the kids, will have access to that. Because one of the things that we, that we've learned and that we remind ourselves about is we want the children to have easy access and people to have easy access into the recreation program. We don't want that barrier about, I can't afford a bike.
Yeah, because they're expensive.
We want to help that, help that out. So
Did you have a lot of interest sign up?
Well, it's growing. We scratched our heads, a couple times why this taking off. But the ride that was scheduled for Saturday had 7 in it, and then the weather, was a little chilly, so we only ended up with 2 that day. So each year we've had the class, we've grown a little bit.
Any other comments or anything? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 3.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Can I have a moment?
Yeah.
Thank you. This is an incredibly sad evening. There's 3 Francis Cove boys in the room. Greg, Randy Sisk, we all grew up together. We played football next to each other. And Randy goes on to serve our country in the Navy, and you heard Greg's accomplishments. And, it's an honor to have known those 2 all my life. And, good people. Greg, thank you for all that you did. I appreciate it. When I began as a tax collector in 1998, Robert Forga was the Republican commissioner then. And somebody did an interview, and it may have been with Vicki or somebody, and they asked me about who's one of my favorite commissioners. I says, it's Robert Forga. I says, yeah, it's a Republican. And it never mattered if there was, as you, Kevin, said earlier, as a Democrat or Republican. It was people who were looking out for the best interests of the county. And it's been, a honor to work with you, Kirk. You've been a good friend and been a great mentor, and I appreciate the times you've listened to me and the times you've corrected me, the times you've made me a better person. And you are just a great person, and I respect you, and you're going to be sorely missed. We appreciate your leadership. I remember, and Kevin brought it up, we were going through the recession, and then the hospital hit. And we were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. And you came and, took that, by the bull by the horns and led the county through a difficult situation. And you certainly needed to get more credit for what you did there because, as Kevin said, Mission Hospital is not what it was, and you are owed a big thank you. So through the recession, through the hospital, and through all the trying times that we've had from solid waste and to other issues, you've been a true leader for the county, and I thank you for what you've done for Haywood County and for me as well, too. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate that, Dave. Okay, item 4 is to request approval of a resolution authorizing the purchase of a train chiller for the Haywood County Justice Center per exception to competitive bidding requirements in the amount of $344,400. Approval of a budget amendment, Capital Project Fund, Master Facilities for $344,400 to appropriate fund balance to the capital project account to cover costs associated with the replacement of the Justice Center chiller HVAC system and approval for county manager to execute all documentation required for said purchase. We have our Facility and Maintenance Director, Tim Sisk, here today to talk about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. That was a mouthful.
Yeah, it was. The next one's even worse.
Yeah, I'm going to stick around for that one. Okay, so the moving parts in this thing is try to give you a little bit of history and give you the compelling factors of why I'm bringing this to the table now. In midsummer, we were called to the Justice Center for no cooling and found the chiller down based on a high temperature trip. We were able to clear that trouble, but continue to have that, within just a few days. Trained technicians were dispatched to the site based on the proprietary nature of the system. Further investigation produced, not only a high temperature sensor that had failed, but we also found a refrigerant leak in the condenser barrel and an unsettling growl in the one of the compressors. Both our in-house staff and HVAC techs from Train, they both feel that we're going to see a major failure within this compressor sooner than later. At this point, we made the decision to assess the overall condition, life expectancy, and replacement. Having said all of that, the compelling factors are this. The life expectancy of this particular piece of equipment is in fact 20 years. We're 18 years into that now, based on the ASHRAE standards. The replacement cost for the one compressor that we're concerned about is in excess of $40,000. That's a verbal quote. The phasing out of the 134A refrigerant will be completed by 2024, so we would be changing the refrigerant in the entire unit anyway. One of the issues that I wanted to try to capture in this new contract was rental taps to be piped in so that if we do see a failure, we're not throwing good money after bad and we just park a rental there until we can replace. Now, the biggest compelling factor here is the lead time of currently 83 weeks. So if we make it the 83 weeks, we're at life expectancy anyway. I've asked a trained technician to come this evening to speak on any technical questions you may have, but the long and short of this thing is it's not long. Tommy, I told you it was coming. So the resolution, as stated, the resolution of the County of Haywood authorizing the purchase of the Train chiller for the Haywood County Justice Center per exception to competitive bidding requirements. Whereas North Carolina General Statute 143-129 details the procedures for letting of public contracts, and whereas North Carolina General Statute 143-129EG identifies exceptions to those procedures as they relate to procurement contracts, and whereas Item 6 of North Carolina General Statute 143-129E provides that formal bid procedures shall not apply to purchase of apparatus, supplies, materials, or equipment when 1, performance or price competitive for the product or not available; 2, a needed product is available for only one source of supply; or 3, standardization and compatibility is the overriding consideration. And whereas the Haywood County Facilities and Maintenance Department has a need to purchase a Train 280-ton RTAF high-efficiency chiller for the Justice Center, Train US Incorporated is the only manufacturer, distributor, authorized dealer, or supplier of this product or its equivalent. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Haywood County Board of Commissioners in general session on November 21st, 2022, hereby authorizes Haywood County to purchase a Train 280-ton RTAF high-efficiency chiller as permitted under North Carolina General Statute 143-129E6 for equipment standardization, adopted this day, 21st day of November 2022. Having said all of that, do you have any questions?
I'm gonna make a motion, we put this off for 1 year. So somebody else besides me can get called to the judges, to the courtroom, and get lashed out because, cussed out because it's too hot in there. Or too cold.
Maybe don't write
I'm just kidding.
Maybe don't
I
write that
withdraw
down.
that motion, I move to approve this resolution.
Yeah, withdraw that quickly.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion or questions or comments?
This is needed terribly, terribly, I can tell you that.
I'm glad you recognize
And
that.
there's no doubt about it. And it's unfortunate, but that thing's been worked on. I've been downstairs and looked at what was wrong with it years ago, and
I
it's
knew you
been
had the history with it.
Yeah, they put Band-Aids on this thing so many times, and this has to be done.
Okay, any other comment? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
I've got one more thing.
Okay.
You had said a while ago, Kirk, that you felt it to be an honor to serve. From my perspective, I think you've served with honor, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, then item 5. It's kind of long. It's the, item 5 is to request approval for the purchase of the following 18 county vehicles from bidders stated below to be paid from fiscal year 2022, 2023 budgeted funds, and approval of resolution authorizing the purchase of the below stated vehicles from the stated vendors per exception to competitive bidding requirements. Our Assistant County Manager, Chris Boyd. And Chris, do I need to read these? You want me-
I'll give you a brief summary if you like, so you don't
Okay.
have to read the whole thing.
Amy, do we need to do, is that okay? If he does a brief summary? Okay.
Good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You will see there are 18 vehicles on this list, 10 pursuit-rated Chargers for the Sheriff's Department, 2 Dodge trucks for Animal Services, 2 transport vans for HHSA, 2 four-door sedans for HHSA, 1 van for the library, and 1 small four-wheel drive truck for the tax office. You will see there are 2 that are absent from this list. We had a total of 20. I have been unable to locate the 2 for public health. Bryant, Will, and I spent several weeks trying to find acceptable vehicles to rotate into our fleet that were comparable to the ones that are there. As of last Wednesday, these were available. There's no guarantee tomorrow when we send a purchase order. I fully anticipate that we will see the same issue we did last year. Some of these vehicles we will order and be canceled in the next month, 2 or 3. So in addition to that, buying from the Sheriff's Association contract as an exception to group purchasing, we're asking for authorization for the manager to have flexibility in case some of these vehicles may be canceled, to look for like kind within the budgeted funds for the fiscal year. This is no different than what we asked you as the board to do last year when we had those vehicles canceled after the initial order. So it's a lot, it's long, it's strange. It probably looks very crazy, but this is the best attempt we have at this time to locate vehicles to replace our fleet. And I will be coming back, or maybe Sarah with Public Health, for 2 additional mid-size SUVs
Okay.
when we find something available.
Okay, and this says, and approval authorizing the county manager to substitute comparable vehicles as needed within fiscal year 2022-23 budgeted funds for vendors who cannot fulfill their submitted bid. So I better finish reading that.
Mr. Chairman, just
Okay, go
one
ahead.
thing. We actually posted our bid on our website, and we're soliciting bids. And when we found out that the order window for Ford had actually closed. We always like to post bids to encourage local bidders, but when we found out that the Ford window had closed, we actually confirmed that there wouldn't be any local bidders because they couldn't order the vehicles, and we had to act quickly then and move to the state contract price. It's the last 2 years getting vehicles has been unbelievably hard, and we hope we can get back to encouraging those local bidders, but this was the best chance we had at finding vehicles, getting them ordered for delivery in late spring, early summer.
Any questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 5.
I will say this. I've had this discussion, and I appreciate y'all's hard work. I mean, I don't think people understand how hard a job it's been. I've had discussions, and I know on the ambulance situation on the last meeting, it kind of worked out that we rebid that. But, it's not for lack of effort. I mean, you guys have worked hard on this. It's something we got to do. But just the times that we're living in, it's making it hard on all of us. So maybe it'll ease up.
You want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve item number 5. Since I'm outgoing, I can prove these big expensive things and they can write bad about me.
I guess I'll second it.
Okay.
I applaud you guys getting out in front of this, though, because if you don't, we'll be in trouble. Both these last 2 items.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, please, for just a moment. Like David Francis, I'm one of the small handful of employees that are still with Haywood County, been fortunate enough to spend my career here and fortunate enough to spend Kirk's 20 years here. He's helped me a lot over the 2 decades. I appreciate the opportunity to learn, grow, and serve with you. Congratulations on a job well done. Sheriff, 10 years. You've been a good soul to me, and I appreciate that. Incredible career in law enforcement. You deserve the best. I wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, the next order is appointments, but we do not have any. And then next is a closed session that we mentioned, and I'll entertain a motion. We go into closed session per North Carolina General Statute 143-381-11A5 regarding property acquisition.
So move.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. We'll be in closed session when we enter the chambers in the back. We're ready. Okay, we will return from closed session to open session. Is there any other business before the board? Okay, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas, since I got to say it now. I won't be here.
That's right. Well, Hallmark is showing Christmas movies now. So.
Right. Now I can watch them late.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Kirk.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, everybody, thank you. Well, it's a sad Kirk.